Hello everyone and welcome to an Outlast dive into the lore of Simon Peacock, a former Murkoff Corporation employee that has become something much stranger. I haven't seen much about him and thought he'd be an interesting subject that could become a prominent character that opens up many possibilities for future or even past characters in the Outlast series. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions on the subject, and of course if I miss anything, feel free to comment down below, but without any further delays, let's talk about what we know of Simon Peacock. As previously mentioned, Simon Peacock was a former Murkoff employee and is assumed to be the first test subject into becoming the Wall Rider. For those who are unaware of the Wall Rider and the first Outlast game, it is the ghostly figure one can see within Mount Massive Asylum, when in fact it is a swarm of nanites, small nanoscopic machines which collectively possesses a number of superhuman advantages. These nanites, controlled by an individual within the morphogenic engine, create an almost invisible swarm to the human eye, and despite being a swarm, are capable of immense physical strength. This entity is one of the most supernatural or fantastical type enemies we've seen in the Outlast series, but within the comic, we can see it doesn't stop at just the nanite swarm itself. After the events of Outlast Whistleblower, we follow two Murkoff insurance mitigation officers, Paul Marion and Pauline Glick, scouring the burnt remains of the whistleblower's home, Wayland Park, noting his intent to disappear. In this frame, though, we can see a mysterious figure hanging about the burnt aftermath of the Park home. Shortly after, however, to make sure all loose ends are tied off, they head to the home of Miles Upshur, the protagonist of Outlast, and speak with his neighbor. She mentions on how Miles was standing nearby his house, though this is extremely unlikely, as in the final moments of Outlast, Miles Upshur becomes the new Wall Rider, thus his body would still be within Mount Massive Asylum and the morphogenic engine. Paul and Pauline dig into the mountains of papers and trash Miles left behind, most likely other leads for investigative jobs, but Paul comes across a computer where ants are seen pouring out of the screen. It can be pieced together rather quickly that these aren't just ants, but in fact the Wall Rider's new host, and begin to bite the two officers. They try using water but to no avail, but quickly resort to fire as nothing seems to be stopping the biting. Stripping off their clothes as they have become infested with the swarm and using fire to burn away the rest, they flee the residence, back into the car to where Paul Marion spots a figure, the same homeless man as before, and quickly gives chase. Determined more than ever about how and why this homeless man is following them, he runs after in nothing but his tie and underwear, to which the man reveals himself to Paul Marion, introducing himself as Simon Peacock. Simon knows Paul is different, chasing after a man in such fashion, but also knows that Paul Marion isn't like other agents. He has shame for what he's doing. Paul Marion knows who Simon Peacock is, the man who worked for Murkoff and leaked company files and encouraged other whistleblowers. As we see, he's the figure at the end of Outlast's DLC Whistleblower, who helped Wayland Park release the information he knew. Simon Peacock continues talking about the morality of working for Murkoff, a company that is pure evil on Earth, and points to coordinates that, according to him, is where the real sickness spreads. Simon demands Paul Marion's help, but Paul has to do his job. A long pause between the two of them is suddenly shifted into a moment of violence as Simon stuffs a block of styrofoam into Paul Marion's mouth and forces him to bite down on it. A strange act, but one we learn more of later. Pauline finally catches up to tell him to freeze, which Simon warns, "Please don't make me hurt you." Turning to flee, Pauline shoots a number of rounds into Simon's body, but he never drops. Even after 8 rounds, his clothes are all but shredded, yet he turns to her. He shows the extent of what remains of his body, an undead-looking creature with maggots and a form of myiasis, if his flesh would even be considered alive at this point. Bones protruding out of his rotten body. Enraged, he rushes her, hitting her before fleeing. It's later learned that the styrofoam he was forced to bite was most likely to learn of Paul Marion's dental records, all to identify Paul Marion and most likely his reasonings for feeling so forced to continue working for such a company. This isn't the last time we see Simon Peacock, though. as after the events of Outlast 2, Simon meets up with Paul Marion once more. But Paul has much more pressing matters, which we will further delve into perhaps in a future video. Simon wishes to seek the Walrider, which at this point is supposedly not Miles or Billy, but a new host that is currently a colony of ants. Here, Simon confirms with Paul that he was a rough draft, informing him that the morphogenic engine needs a method of infection. Originally, they used videos and dream therapy to force nightmares in Mount Massive, but in the world and for Temple Gate, they use religion. Gods communicating with men, dividing themselves into components that men could understand, a trinity with the sign of the cross. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Thus being the final comic and the last known information we see or hear of Simon Peacock. After what we learn of what the Walrider can truly accomplish, it is no surprise that something almost supernatural could come of it, that being Simon Peacock. But it would seem only one host can be made with the Walrider. But with the colony of ants, and what Simon Peacock says with that being divided into components for men to understand, it doesn't seem so outlandish to believe that more than one person can achieve lateral ascension and become a host at the same time. The Walrider seemingly learning who it can attach itself to, and as long as it has the nanites to spare, it can move and connect to those it wishes. Simon Peacock surviving in this state could very well be just that. A body full of enough nanites to keep him in a state some would say is alive, but not enough to keep him from rotting, as he is just a rough draft. With so little information on this individual, a number of directions could become of him, but it's safe to assume that the next protagonist will more than likely be on his side, similar to the previous ones. As of so far, every Outlast game has been about a protagonist learning about the evils of the Murkoff Corporation and trying to uproot them. Perhaps the third installment will have us finally eliminate the Walrider altogether, inadvertently ending Simon's life, or perhaps we'll be playing a Murkoff agent cleaning up the mess firsthand. Will we see more pushing this almost supernatural element? Or perhaps Simon Peacock along with the Walrider will be the strangest the Outlast series ever gets. Let me know what you think, and what you'd love to see for the series' future. That is all the time that I have for now, but in the meantime, let me know your thoughts and theories as I'd love to hear them. Let me know if I missed any details, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on future videos. Some videos being Let's Plays, and some being these lore and theory videos that will be posted at least once a week. Don't be afraid to let me know some subjects that you'd be interested in seeing, and hopefully, I see you all in the next video. See you then.